What up, YouTube? This video was taken on this Monday afternoon, September 19th, 2022. Time right now is 6:06 p.m. And I got an unboxing from JLCPCB. Now, I'm not sponsored by them, but I kind of had a PCB produced that kind of challenged me a bit. So I thought I would unbox it and test it to see. I don't want to have anything that docks me. I thought I would unbox it and test it on camera just to see what it looks like. See if everything turned out good. So here it is. Nicely packaged. Oh yeah, and I placed this order on September 9th, so it took 10 days to ship, and I paid extra for the DHL shipping, and I paid $29.01 for this PCB, 5 PCBs. And basically what it is, should I wait till I get it unboxed to reveal what it is? Or do you guys know what it is already? Can you take a guess? It is PCBs for my, or PDB, I guess you can say, power distribution board for my custom frame project that I'm doing, which I'll be making more videos down the road about. So the thing about it is I was a little worried about the odd shape. I didn't know, I never had an odd shape cut out before, so I didn't know how that was going to work out, but it looks like it worked out good. The routing is nice and good. Man, I'm all sweaty. Silk screen looks really good. It's funny, these things always look smaller in person than when you're working on it on the I designed this in KiCad 6. So when you're working it in KiCad, you always think it's going to be bigger than what it actually is. And I did a little custom graphics there. But it doesn't matter how it looks, it matters if it's functional. So let's see what the holes are. So 32.8. So that should be, it's 30 by 30. So that should be good enough. Now these holes, I made them all 3mm. Now they say that you should make M3 holes so they're 2.9. They say you should make all M3 holes 3.2mm, but I wanted my tolerance to be real tight for the arm mounting holes, so I made all the holes 3mm, and I figured I could ream them out, get a 3mm reamer, hand reamer, and ream them out. Let me, I have some of the screws that I'm going to use for the project here. Let me see if they'll fit through the hole. Or if I should have used the 3.2. Yeah, you see? So I'm glad these M3 screws that I'm going to use, I'm glad I didn't make these 3.2. I made them 3. And I'm glad because they fit in there nicely. If I made them 3.2, there would be too much wiggle room, especially for the fitment of the arms. And then another thing we got to pay attention to is, let me get my multimeter out and see if we have any shorts. Now, even though this PCB is extremely easy, as far as there's not really that many components, I mean, it's a PDB, it just distributes the power. And what it is it's hard to find all-in-one flight controllers that support individual ESCs. So I designed this PDB to have JST connectors. So instead of plugging your flight controller into a 401 ESC, you plug that flight controller into this, and then it distributes the signals out to the 4 ESCs. And I also put in TVS diode slots for spike suppression and capacitors. And then I put RGB LEDs on the bottom side. Okay, so let's see if there's any shorts. So between battery, positive and negative, nothing. Okay, so let's check all the negatives. Negative to ESC, that's good. I guess maybe I should say you guys have audible. Oh. And then positive. And then negative. And then none of these should be. So I kept this is the LED, the connector for the RGB LEDs. I kept the ground isolated because I thought that would be a good idea. Okay, so let's see, PWM. Well, this should be 3, so this should be. Yeah, that should be that one. This should be 1, so it should be this one. Yep. Let me make sure none of these. This is 4, so this should be this one. And this one is 2, so it should be this one. Yep, and then all the RXs should be connected together. That one's ground, right? Yep. So electrically, the board seems good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and solder it all up, which it shouldn't be too big of a deal. The hardest part is probably these 2 JSC connectors I put on there. And we'll see how everything solders up. And the one thing that was hard about this board, even though this board is really simple, it took me a long time to do because since it doesn't have a perfect square shape, KiCad isn't set up to put traces in artistic shapes. So I wanted to make it look good. So I tried to route the traces along the edges here as good as I can. Oh yeah, that's what I did. This is a 2-layer board. And you see this top half has a battery plus plane, and the bottom has a ground plane. So all the traces for the LEDs and the signals for the ESCs are all routed on the side of the copper fill. So that took a lot of time to do that. A lot more time than what it looks. But yeah, I'm really happy with the way the PCB came out. PDB came out. So I'll solder it up and we'll come back to it after it's all soldered. Okay, so it's the next day. I got it all soldered up. I did use the lead coating on the board. You can do leaded or unleaded. I just went ahead and did leaded. Very easy to solder up. The caps, I did put, what is it, E6000 down? I forget if it's E6000 or E9000. I put it down on the bottom of the caps when I put them in, just to give them a little extra support. There's all the LEDs. Now, these LEDs, if you buy them straight from DigiKey, they're like $4 a piece. So it would have made the project super expensive. So what I did was, off of Amazon, I got like 5 of these boards for $7. And at first I tried to manually unsolder the LED. That wasn't going to work. So what I did is I put the board upside down in the vise, and I just took a heat gun to the backside, and I just tapped it, and all the LEDs fell off. So hopefully I didn't damage any of the LEDs from that reheating process. But as far as soldering the LEDs on the board, it was pretty easy. So were the capacitors. Although I will say that my solder job isn't the best. Like I'm looking at this capacitor here. This capacitor's not flat. So maybe I'll go back and touch that up. Yeah, that capacitor is horrible. So yeah, I'll touch some of that up. My soldering isn't the best. But I want to go and plug this in and see if the LEDs still work. So here's the flight controller. So my tolerances, by drilling all the holes 3mm, not 3.2, it ended up working out good. Working out just fine. There's the JST connectors. I ended up doing the flood and remove solder method for them. So we'll see if we have any bad solder joints. And I ended up using button screws for this, but I don't have any M3 locking nuts, so I ordered that off of Amazon. And then I just put XT60 on here. Now originally I was gonna put slotted holes here to secure stuff to the board, and then put a slotted hole in here to secure the XT60 to keep it from ripping from the pad. But I was afraid to take the risk of trying to do slotted holes because I never did that before. So I'm just going to go with the old school method of tie wrapping the XT60 lead to the standoff. I'm going to try to do 20mm standoffs on this build. That's why I have this hole cut for the DJI camera, because you can't do 20mm standoffs with the DJI camera. So this hole's cut so the DJI camera can sink down past the PCB, so I can try to do 20mm standoffs. But so far, 20mm standoffs will work. These caps will fit underneath it, and the stack will fit underneath the 20mm standoff. And then I made my own. I bought a kit off of Amazon to make my own JST pigtail for the LED, because I wanted to make it so I could just totally remove this, unplug this circuit board, this flight controller, if I needed to. And I went through my wire kit, and I had a 8-pin JST. This is SH, JST-SH. That's what the size is. I had an 8-pin connector, and it's straight through both connectors. And I ohmed it out to make sure that we didn't have a wiring problem. Battery plus should be battery plus. And I haven't done that. Let me go ahead and check it from the battery connector. I just did it from the JST connector. So battery plus, and then over here it's labeled battery plus. And then ground should be 2 over. Yep, ground's 2 over. Yeah, so it should be right. So let's get, I already, excuse me, sorry. I already have this flight controller set up for the LEDs. Because I never had color changing LEDs before, so I was messing around with that in beta flight before this. So let's see if we can let the black magic smoke out of it. I am using a smoke stopper though, because at $80 a flight controller, I don't have enough YouTube views to Oh yeah, and one thing I noticed is you can only use LEDs on their battery power. You can't use them under you can't use them under USB. First try, who would have thought that? That's cool. Flight controller's booted up. Let me go and just check the voltage. This isn't a charged battery, so I don't know what's this battery at? 22.02. That's cool. Well, I think I'm going to go and plug the flight controller into Betaflight and see if I can come up with a cool pattern to change the LED lights to. Okay, I put a different programming on the LEDs. I couldn't figure out how to get the orientation to work, but I'll just have to check into it more. And also I found out that I had this flight controller turn sideways because I had it plugged in the wrong ESC port. There's two ESC ports. So I changed that. But yeah, I'm pretty happy how this came out. Obviously, I don't know if it's going to work out with the ampacity. That would be something that I'm going to have to find out in the future. And I also don't know if it's going to work out with the ESC, PWM, and the telemetry. But I ohmed it out, so it should be good. I thought I would just make this video just showing this PCB I made using KiCad 6 and then JLCPCB. I also decided to go ahead and I took a Sharpie and I Sharpied the edge to make it black. But yeah, I'm extremely happy with the way it turned out. There is one other thing I am worried about, and let me see if I can show you right here. So I decided that I'm going to be using these flathead countersunk screws with these 8mm washers. And for the arms, it's going to be going like that. So the only thing I'm worried about is oh, I'm not even on camera, am I? So the arms is going to go like that. The only thing I'm worried about is I ran out of room in between the traces, so I lowered the, for these holes, they have a setting that's like a anti-mass setting where you set your diameter so nothing can go within the circle. Well, I lowered that some, so I'm afraid now that this washer is going to be right on top of the power plane. I'm afraid that vibration is going to damage the solder mask and it's going to end up shorting out over time. So I'm either going to go and make my own like insulating washer to put underneath this, or I'm just not going to worry about it. But that's something that time will tell. But like I said, I can't say anything bad about JLC PCB because they're so cheap. But they seem to do a good job. It is interesting though. I was wondering if I was going to regret making these holes 3mm and not 3.2, but I'm glad I made them 3 because with 3 the bolts go straight through. But yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.